What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and today I would like to review and discuss and praise and hopefully convince somebody in the world to go check out the soundtrack to the musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch. First off, the Zappa connection, because there is one. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a stage production that was turned into a movie. Both are musicals. In both the story and some of the lyrics, the Velvet Underground are explicitly referenced. In fact, the sort of musical inspiration for the main character is Lou Reed. And the Velvet Underground, which Lou Reed was in, and Nico, who played with Velvet Underground, who is mentioned in the song, were as shitty as a group as Frank Zappa's Mothers. Also, Tina Turner is specifically mentioned in one of the songs, and Tina Turner, Overnight Sensation. So, there are connections. But the reason I wanted to do this now is because elsewhere on this channel, I am reviewing David Bowie's albums in the order of the box sets that were recently released. And so I just did Ziggy Stardust, that era, the glam rock album, one of the best glam rock albums of all time, arguably. And the music on this release to the soundtrack is very much rooted in David Bowie, T-Rex, some New York Dolls action, very much. These people are specifically referenced. Bowie is, Velvet Underground is, Lou Reed. So later Lou Reed, maybe a little Transformer type stuff in there, maybe. But it's a very glam rock, and you can hear that inspiration of something like Ziggy Stardust, very much so. It's a very inspiration of like David Johansen from the New York Dolls. That stuff is really clear in here. So when I was listening to Ziggy Stardust recently for the David Bowie review, I dug this out because I wanted to hear this again. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if enough people know this album. And I don't think you have to have seen the movie to enjoy the album. I think you just have to really like this kind of sort of glam rock. But just as a warning, since maybe the content of the movie might not be appealing to everybody, and I don't want to send somebody searching for something that they're going to not like almost immediately. But the movie is about an East German young man who decides to have a sex change operation in order to get married, to go to America in 1988, right before the Berlin Wall falls. This young man has this sex change operation thanks to an East German doctor. It is a botched operation, and what he's left with is an angry inch. But this young boy becomes Hedwig, this transgender woman who moves to America. As soon as they get to America, her husband leaves her for a younger boy. And then she eventually meets this other young boy, and they start a musical group. She starts performing at a coffee shop. She writes these songs. There's a whole long story. But she is a transgendered woman throughout the entire thing. And you can see that thumbnail. That's what Hedwig looks like. And the actual play itself is literally just like a one-woman show with a band. So like she's telling her story, and then she will sing the songs throughout the story. So the story's lyrics, the song's lyrics are narrative driven. There are stories in here. But I don't think you need to know the movie to enjoy the song. The music is fantastic. The lyrics, though they are telling a story, are telling them in rock fashion, not in like, I'm trying to think of an example. Not in like chorus line fashion, we're like, mother always, you're telling a story. No, it's not like that. These are rock songs. Though there is speaking parts in it, but they feel more like, even like songs have speaking parts. But they work. Anyways, it's a fantastic album. It's glam rock. Some of it's really heavy. There's a couple beautiful ballads, one that kind of reminds me of Life on Mars, though the lyrics are more focused on the story. There's an awesome song that almost sounds like a David Bowie concert closer, where everybody would have their lighters in the air and like just be like singing along with each other because it's this uplifting, powerful song. It is just an absolutely fantastic album. There's 14 songs. I'm talking about the film soundtrack. If you decide to check this album out, get the film soundtrack. I think that is the best of them. There's 14 songs in it. I think the first 9 feel like an album. Like if Hedwig was a real artist and released like an album, like the first 9 songs would be like a perfect glam rock album. The other 5 songs almost feel like, and they kind of are, stuff that was included in the movie that maybe just doesn't have much of a sort of like narrative overall impact. It's the way I view the album. But the first 9 songs, it's like a perfect album. Tear Me Down opens up. We get the whole story of like tear down the wall, tear down who I used to be, kind of the story of how Hedwig became Hedwig. Then we get this absolutely phenomenal sort of glam prog rock, not prog, glam rock epic called The Origin of Love, which takes Plato's story about love that I think comes from Phaedo, right? Where does The Origin of Love in Plato comes from? I know I read that back in the day. I think it comes from Phaedo. I think it comes from the Phaedo book. But he talks about the origin of love, in which people, all of us, used to be like a single being, and we had 2 halves, and some of us were male female, some of us were male male, some of us were female female, and then we angered the gods, so the gods split us in 2, and we went our separate ways. And that when you fall in love, you are literally finding your other half, the person that literally once was you. And so that recognition in their eyes is like you're recognizing yourself. It is an incredible song. It starts off kind of soft. It has this great thunderous build up. It brings it back down. The lyrics are fantastic. The performance by the band is fantastic. Most of these songs are written by James Cameron Mitchell, who I think wrote the play. He is Hedwig in the original version. And Stephen Trask, who is like his songwriter. Trask also is in the movie. He's like the lead guitar player. On the album, Bob Mould plays lead guitar, so they managed to get him on the album. But Origin of Love is just this absolutely, I think, just beautiful song with some great lyrics. Angry Inch describes how he got his Angry Inch. It's his first day as a woman, and it's my first day as a woman, and it's already my time of the month. But just because he's bleeding from the botched operation. So yeah, there are some explicit lyrics, but I think some of it's pretty funny. Wicked Little Town is this almost like Life on Mars type little piano ballady type thing that's sung from not Hedwig's perspective, but there's another character in the play called Tommy Nossis. It's from his perspective, and it's a great performance. And Stephen Trask sings that. Wig in a Box, which is this just great playful thing about how Hedwig likes to put on different wigs to be different people as he's living in nowhere, Kansas, after her husband leaves him. The Long Grift, it's kind of about the reaction to your husband leaving you and how you like just grifted me romantically. And then the 1, 2, 3 punch to close the first 9 songs. Hedwig's Lament, which is after Hedwig's kind of come to terms with who she is. It's this like really slow song in which she kind of just reminds me of the beginning of like Pavement's Embassy Row, where you get these like little quiet almost spoken parts that are going to erupt into something big. And so you get Hedwig's Lament, and it erupts into this absolutely totally aggressive, kind of sounds like Sugar almost, now that I think of it, but maybe a much more glam rocky Sugar song called Exquisite Corpse. And that just devolves into this crazy madness. And then the first 9 closes with this Midnight Radio song, which is just like this, like really just gentle, like 1 chord, then another chord, just kind of setting it up, and the lyrics come kind of just, hey, and then the energy builds, and by the end it's like, raise your hand. We just get into like the cheese, but it works so well. We get the shout outs to Nico and Nona and Tina, and it's a fantastic song. And like Mitchell's a good performer, the band is tight. It's just those first 9 songs, it's a perfect run of music. Then like the songs that I think are sort of the like bonus tracks, you get Nailed, which in the movie is a song being played on the radio, but you get the full version of it. It's kind of a short little New York type of mid-'80s punk song. You get Sugar Daddy, which is in the movie, which is this like playful, almost cabaret-ish, like you're my sugar daddy, like Hedwig's looking for her sugar daddy to get through life. Freaks is the one that I think that's actually played on the radio in the movie. But it's another really good song by like Stephen Trask, this short little maybe punkier song about being freaks. In Your Arms Tonight. And then it closes out with another version of Wicked Little Town. This one is sung by Hedwig in the movie. The other one sung by the other character. But it's 14 songs. It's really good glam rock. The first 9 are a perfect album. Some of these songs I think are just total classics. Midnight Radio and Origin of Love are just perfect creations. Exquisite Corpse, Tear Me Down, Angry Inch really, really rock and rock well. Wig in a Box is so much fun. And Wicked Little Town is kind of a nice little Life on Mars, ballady, piano-driven piece. I think it's a fantastic album. And if one person watching this checks it out and likes it, ideally, right? That's the point, to get them to like it. I think you would, though. If you're a glam rock fan, if you don't like David Bowie and are really clear about not liking David Bowie, you might want to skip this. But if you're a Bowie fan, if you're a T-Rex fan, if you're a New York Dolls fan, if you're a Ziggy Stardust fan and you've not checked out this album, I think there's a lot to really, really love on this album. And yeah, I recommend it. I want somebody to check it out. Let's spread the Hedwig love. It still tours. You can still see the musical production here in the States. It's been through San Antonio a lot. I've had a couple friends of mine, Roy, Chibi, they both played Hedwig in local performances. Oh, that's my other connection that I did not get to earlier. When I saw Hedwig here several years ago, I think it was one of the performances Roy was in, the sound man before the show, in the mix of songs he played Frank Zappa's He's So Gay. So yeah, it was a good little kind of in joke maybe, but it was like, you could see there was, I think, it was a pretty packed audience. It was a kind of small church. It's not a big performance. And when he played the song, I turned around to see who the sound man was, and I saw some other person look around like, hey, who's doing this? So it was recognized by at least 2 of us. I don't know, not really an in joke, but a nice song to play that you would normally never ever hear before a theater show. I also saw decades ago, I think this is from the mid-90s, late 90s, back in the early, maybe about 10 years after, maybe about 12, 15 years ago, what's his name? Doogie Howser. Neil Patrick Harris played Hedwig. I managed to catch that. And then I never saw James Cameron Mitchell see it, but I've seen a couple other people play it. It's a great performance. Movie, I think, is better than the play. Too many just dated jokes in the play. But the movie, I think it's a good movie. Fantastic movie. I enjoyed it. So anyways, that's all I got. Check this out, man. Especially if you like glam rock. It's a really good album. And it's funny. The movie's funny. All right, that's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.